Yellowstone National Park, America's first national park, stands as a breathtaking wilderness spanning Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. Millions flock to its iconic geysers, hot springs, and diverse wildlife each year. Yet beneath this natural splendor lurks an unforgiving landscape of hidden dangers. With 4 million annual visitors and 2 to 3 deaths yearly, Yellowstone statistics reveal nature's harsh indifference. Unpredictable wildlife, scalding thermal features, and vast backcountry have claimed many lives through the park's history. Here are 5 tragic incidents that forever changed the lives of those who ventured into Yellowstone's beautiful but deadly terrain. The sun shone brightly over the iconic Old Faithful area of Yellowstone National Park on the morning of May 16, 2015. Richard White, a 43-year-old from San Diego, California, stood among the crowds gathering to witness the famous geyser's eruption. A technology company executive with a passion for photography, Richard had traveled to Yellowstone hoping to capture the park's natural wonders through his camera lens. Friends and colleagues remembered Richard as intelligent and ambitious, with a keen interest in the outdoors and wildlife photography. His social media accounts showcased stunning images from his travels around the world, revealing his talent for capturing landscapes and animals in their natural habitats. This trip to Yellowstone represented another opportunity to add to his impressive portfolio of nature photography. After watching Old Faithful's eruption, Richard decided to explore the surrounding area, moving away from the main boardwalks and viewing platforms where most tourists remained. Armed with his camera and a desire for authentic wildlife shots, he began walking through an open meadow area near the Old Faithful in where several bison were grazing. Yellowstone is home to approximately 5,000 bison, the largest public herd of American bison in the United States. These massive animals, weighing up to 2,000 pounds and capable of running at speeds of 35 miles per hour, are among the most dangerous animals in the park. Despite their placid appearance, they are wild animals that can become aggressive when they feel threatened or crowded. Park regulations require visitors to maintain a distance of at least 25 yards from bison, but evidence suggests Richard approached much closer, possibly to capture better photographs. Several other tourists observed him moving within 10 yards of a large bull bison, a massive animal with curved horns and a powerful frame. What happened next occurred with shocking speed and violence. The bison, perhaps perceiving Richard's proximity as a threat, suddenly charged. Witnesses described a lightning-fast movement as the animal lowered its head and thrust its horns upward, catching Richard in the chest and tossing him several feet into the air. He landed hard on the ground, suffering catastrophic internal injuries from both the goring and the impact. Nearby visitors immediately called for help, and park rangers arrived quickly at the scene. Despite their rapid response and efforts to provide emergency care, Richard's injuries proved fatal. He was pronounced dead at the scene, becoming one of the rare but tragic casualties of wildlife encounters in Yellowstone. News of Richard's death spread quickly through national media, highlighting the inherent dangers of wildlife in national parks. Park officials used the incident to emphasize their safety messages, reminding visitors that despite their seemingly docile nature, bison are wild animals that demand respect and distance. In the aftermath, Richard's family and friends mourned the loss of a life cut short by a momentary lapse in judgment. His photography, which had been a source of joy and fulfillment throughout his life, had inadvertently led him into a fatal situation. The irony wasn't lost on park rangers, who often observe visitors taking dangerous risks for the perfect photograph. Richard's death added to the statistics of bison-related injuries in Yellowstone, which average approximately 5 per year. Colin Nathaniel Scott stood at the edge of Norris Geyser Basin on a warm June afternoon in 2016. The landscape before him was otherworldly, a volcanic wonderland of bubbling mud pots, steaming vents, and brilliantly colored hot springs. The 23-year-old from Portland, Oregon, had come to Yellowstone with his sister to experience the park's natural wonders firsthand. Colin, a graduate of Pacific University with a psychology degree, had always been drawn to exploration and adventure. Friends described him as kind-hearted and thoughtful, with a genuine passion for learning about the world around him. His academic achievements spoke to his intelligence and dedication, while his adventurous spirit often led him to seek out new experiences. The siblings were exploring an off-limits area of Norris Geyser Basin, wandering away from the designated boardwalk that keeps visitors safe from the dangerously thin mineral crusts surrounding Yellowstone's thermal features. Despite prominent warning signs posted throughout the area, they ventured where few dared to tread, drawn by the allure of getting closer to the park's natural wonders. As they moved across the fragile ground, Colin was recording their adventure on his phone, capturing video of their forbidden excursion. The pair had walked about 225 yards off the established pathway when they stopped near a hot spring. The ground beneath them appeared solid enough, though steam rose from vents nearby, hinting at the scalding water just below the surface. Colin was looking for a place to hot pot, the illegal and extremely dangerous practice of soaking in thermal pools. What happened next occurred in a matter of seconds, but would haunt his sister for a lifetime. Without warning, the thin crust beneath Colin's feet gave way, and he plunged into the acidic, superheated water below. His sister watched in horror as Colin fell into the spring. The water in these thermal features can reach temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cause instantaneous third-degree burns. She immediately ran for help, frantically alerting park rangers to the accident. When rangers arrived at the scene, conditions were deemed too dangerous for an immediate recovery operation. Thunderstorms were moving in, making the already treacherous terrain even more hazardous. By the time they were able to return the following day, they found no remains to recover. The scalding, highly acidic water had dissolved Colin's body. Park officials made the difficult decision not to attempt to recover any remains, both for safety reasons and out of respect for the family. The risks to recovery personnel were simply too great, and the acidic waters had already done their grim work. Colin's sister, the sole witness to the tragedy, was left with memories that no one should have to bear. In the aftermath, Yellowstone officials reiterated the vital importance of staying on boardwalks and designated trails around thermal features. Colin's death served as a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of Yellowstone's thermal areas, which claim lives with tragic regularity despite persistent warnings. Colin Nathaniel Scott's story, while devastating, carries an important message about respecting the inherent dangers of our national parks. His life, cut tragically short by a moment's decision, reminds us that nature's beauty often conceals its most lethal hazards. Though his physical presence vanished that day in Norris Geyser Basin, his story continues to echo through the steaming valleys of Yellowstone, a solemn warning to all who visit this majestic but merciless landscape. Lance Crosby walked along a familiar trail in Yellowstone's Lake Village area, the morning sun filtering through the pine canopy overhead. It was August 6, 2015, and the 63-year-old had set out alone for what should have been a routine hike in the wilderness he had come to know and love. Born and raised in Salmon, Idaho, Lance had deep roots in the Mountain West. After a career as a nurse and emergency medical technician in various locations, he had found his way to Yellowstone, where he worked as a longtime employee of Medcare, the company that operates urgent care clinics in the park. For Lance, working in Yellowstone was the perfect marriage of his medical expertise and his passion for the outdoors. Colleagues described Lance as experienced and knowledgeable about the park's terrain and wildlife. He had been working and hiking in Yellowstone for 5 seasons, accumulating countless hours on its trails. With his sturdy frame and calm demeanor, he embodied the quiet confidence of someone well-versed in wilderness navigation and safety. That morning, Lance had left his cabin without telling anyone about his planned route, a deviation from best practices for solo hikers in bear country. He embarked on the Elephant Back Trail, a moderately difficult path that winds through the forest about half a mile from Lake Yellowstone Hotel. The trail was one he had hiked numerous times before, offering spectacular views of Yellowstone Lake and the surrounding landscape. When Lance failed to report for his shift that afternoon, concern began to grow among his coworkers. It wasn't like him to miss work without notice. By evening, a search was organized, with park rangers setting out to locate the missing hiker as darkness fell over the mountains. The search stretched into the following morning, with teams combing the areas where Lance was known to hike. Around noon on August 7th, tragedy was confirmed when searchers discovered his body partially consumed and cached, or covered, in a forested area about half a mile from the trail. The evidence at the scene told a grim story. Lance had encountered a female grizzly with cubs, likely triggering a defensive attack. The autopsy revealed that Lance had suffered traumatic injuries consistent with a bear mauling, including significant wounds to his forearms suggesting he had tried to defend himself. DNA evidence collected at the site confirmed the identity of the bear, a female grizzly approximately 15 years old who was traveling with at least one cub. After careful deliberation and following the park's bear management protocols, officials made the difficult decision to euthanize the bear. The animal was captured on August 13th and genetic testing confirmed it was the same bear responsible for Lance's death. While the decision was controversial among some wildlife advocates, park officials cited the bear's behavior of consuming and caching a human victim as evidence of a dangerous predatory pattern. The tragedy sent ripples through the Yellowstone community. Lance was remembered as a dedicated healthcare worker who had touched many lives both in his professional capacity and as a friend. His family spoke of his love for the park and his understanding of its risks, making his death all the more poignant. And the aftermath, park officials renewed their emphasis on bear safety education, reminding visitors of the importance of hiking in groups, making noise while on trails, carrying bear spray, and being alert for signs of bear activity. Lance's death underscored the reality that even the most experienced outdoor enthusiasts can fall victim to the unpredictable nature of wild animals. The morning of September 6, 2010, began like any other day in the remote backcountry of Yellowstone National Park. John Wallace, a 59-year-old from Chassell, Michigan, was alone at his campsite along the Merry Mountain Trail, a 21-mile path that cuts through the heart of the park's grizzly bear country. The site, nestled in a meadow surrounded by dense forest, was isolated, exactly the kind of wilderness experience John had been seeking. John was no stranger to outdoor adventures. Friends and family described him as an avid hiker and nature enthusiast who had visited national parks across the country. His love for the outdoors had been a constant throughout his life, nurtured during his childhood in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where he developed a deep appreciation for natural landscapes. A retired pharmacist, John had planned this solo backpacking trip as a way to immerse himself in the pristine wilderness of Yellowstone. He had obtained the necessary backcountry permits and had been hiking for several days before setting up camp in the Merry Mountain area. While experienced in outdoor activities, park rangers would later note that John was hiking alone in prime grizzly habitat during the time of year when bears are intensively feeding to prepare for winter hibernation. On the morning of September 7th, two hikers passing through the area made a grisly discovery. They found John's body about 5 miles west of the trailhead at Merry Mountain. Evidence at the scene indicated he had been killed by a grizzly bear. The hikers immediately hiked out to report their discovery to park rangers. Park officials quickly closed the surrounding area and assembled a team to investigate the scene. The evidence they gathered pointed to a fatal encounter with a grizzly bear, though it was unclear whether the attack had been predatory or defensive in nature. John's campsite showed signs of proper food storage, suggesting he had followed protocols to avoid attracting bears. An autopsy revealed that John had died from traumatic injuries consistent with a bear attack. Park rangers conducted DNA testing on hair samples collected at the site, which would later prove crucial in identifying the bear responsible. In a tragic twist, the same female grizzly linked to John's death had been captured and released just 2 weeks earlier after being implicated in another fatal attack on a hiker named Brian Matayoshi in July of that year. The revelation that the same bear was involved in 2 fatal attacks within 2 months ignited debate about the park's bear management policies. Critics argued that the bear should have been euthanized after the first incident, while wildlife advocates pointed out that the first attack had been deemed defensive, a normal response from a female grizzly surprised with her cubs. After confirming the bear's identity through DNA evidence, park officials made the difficult decision to euthanize the animal. Her cubs, believed to be old enough to survive on their own, were left in the wild. The controversy surrounding the decision reflected the complex balance Yellowstone must maintain between preserving wildlife and ensuring visitor safety. The vast wilderness of Yellowstone stretched before Truman Everts on a crisp September morning in 1870. At 54 years old, the former tax assessor from Vermont had joined the Washburn-Langford Doane expedition, a group of explorers surveying the area that would soon become America's first national park. Little did he know that this journey would become a harrowing test of human endurance that would nearly claim his life. Truman was not a typical explorer. Described by his companions as bookish and somewhat frail, he lacked the rugged constitution of many frontier adventurers. Yet he possessed an insatiable curiosity about the natural world and had eagerly joined the expedition to document this largely uncharted territory. With graying hair and spectacles perched on his nose, he cut a scholarly figure among the more seasoned outdoorsmen. On September 9, 1870, while traveling through the dense forests near Yellowstone Lake, Truman became separated from the main party. He had dismounted to adjust his saddle when his horse, spooked by something in the underbrush, bolted away with all his supplies, including food, weapons, and matches. Assuming he could quickly rejoin his companions, Truman set off in what he thought was the direction of their camp. This momentary misfortune would spiral into a 37-day ordeal that would push him to the very edge of human survival. As night fell, Truman realized he was thoroughly lost in a wilderness larger than some states, with no means of creating fire, no weapons for hunting, and no shelter from the elements. The expedition members searched for him for several days before reluctantly concluding he had perished, continuing their journey with heavy hearts. Alone in the wilderness, Truman's situation quickly deteriorated. Early autumn in Yellowstone brought freezing nights, and without fire, he suffered terribly from the cold. He survived initially by foraging for thistle roots and a handful of berries, but hunger soon became his constant companion. In a desperate attempt to create fire, he tried using his eyeglasses to focus sunlight onto dry grass, occasionally succeeding after hours of patient effort. As days turned into weeks, Truman's physical condition worsened dramatically. He lost his glasses while trying to cross a river, eliminating his only means of creating fire. Frostbite claimed his toes, and his weight dropped precipitously as starvation set in. At one point, he was reduced to crawling on hands and knees, unable to stand due to weakness and injury. Yet somehow, a remarkable will to survive propelled him forward. He later wrote about experiencing hallucinations, conversations with imaginary companions, and visions of abundant feasts. These delusions, cruel as they were, perhaps provided the psychological comfort needed to endure his isolation. The natural wonders of Yellowstone, which he had come to document, became both torment and salvation. He narrowly escaped death when a wildfire raced through the forest where he was sleeping. On another occasion, he was stalked by a mountain lion for several days. Most bizarrely, he discovered that sleeping near thermal features provided crucial warmth during freezing nights, though the sulfurous gases frequently made him ill. By early October, search parties were again scouring the region for any sign of Truman. On October 16, 1870, 37 days after his separation from the expedition, 2 men hired to search for him spotted what they initially thought was a bear crawling along a hillside. To their astonishment, it was Truman Everts, emaciated beyond recognition, his clothing in tatters, but still clinging to life. Weighing just 50 pounds, less than half his normal weight, Truman was initially unable to eat solid food. His rescuers slowly nursed him back to health, feeding him small amounts of broth before gradually introducing more substantial nutrition. Against all odds, he survived his ordeal, though he never fully recovered physically, suffering from frostbite damage and chronic health issues for the remainder of his life. In 1871, Truman published an account of his experiences titled 37 Days of Peril in Scribner's Monthly, which captivated the American public and contributed to growing interest in the Yellowstone region. His story helped fuel the movement that would lead to Yellowstone being established as America's first national park in 1872. Truman Everts lived until 1901, reaching the age of 85 despite his traumatic experience. His incredible tale of survival stands as a testament to human resilience in the face of overwhelming odds.